Welcome to Front Range Facts. This is Anthony Meisner.
And this is Jim Marion.
We wanted to bring you the latest and greatest market update. And Jim, what's going on a national market today?
Pandemonium, absolute pandemonium. We've got market is moving and shaking. Basically, we've seen home prices increase 24% nationally since the pandemic began. And, just blows, I think, everybody's mind when you think about all the rough conversations you had with clients in March of 2020 and about how the sky was falling in their eyes and what were we all going to do. So just to see it kind of have this complete 180 with home prices going up 24% nationally, it's pretty mind blowing. And it obviously is directly linked to the lack of inventory. Basically year over year from April to April 2021, home inventory fell over 50%. I think we're around 37, 38% down now. So we've moved back up a bit, but we're basically at that 40-year low level. When you couple that with what we've talked about before with these crazy millennials having the nerve to want to buy a house, we've got the largest tranche of millennials. They were born between 1989 and 1993. So that 4-year period of time has the largest group of millennials, and they are all definitely moving in high gear, wanting to buy their first property now. So that has certainly added a lot of fuel to an already pretty strong fire. And what's interesting too is existing home sales rose 2% in July. So, that's really kind of showing that it's continuing to stay strong, whereas we kind of peak, in May, June, typically nationwide. And so having it continue to grow in July just shows that I think a lot of people missed out on what they're looking for in the spring, and they kept fighting. And then they got finally a home that didn't have quite as much bidding going on. So they were able to get something under contract in July.
I mean, that's the interesting part about this, right? I mean, we've talked about Colorado not quite mirroring the national market. So when we get to the Colorado, the local market slides, we're really going to talk about kind of how that's affected Colorado and Boulder County and everyone from Fort Collins down to Colorado Springs. I mean, the Front Range really seems to be in line. Whether
Yeah.
it matches up with the national news or not here, we'll talk about in a
Yeah, a
second.
little bit out of sync, right, for sure.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
CoreLogic, which is one of the nation's largest real estate data aggregators, surveyed consumers looking to buy homes, and they showed that almost two-thirds, essentially, of all ages preferred single-family homes, which is obviously in stark contrast to kind of what the average person can afford, given the rise in prices nationwide. But it's going to show that I think what it shows is that, certainly people are going to settle for a condo or a townhome, but in their heart of hearts, they're really hoping for a single family home. And given the lack of inventory for those single family homes, it's going to continue to have that, demand really solid for that. It depends who you ask, but basically we've got an underbuilt situation where we have less homes than we should nationwide, and that number is somewhere between like 4 and 6 million homes less than what we really need. So it's a pretty challenging market that has long-term problems, and I think what we saw in spring of this year is in some ways going to be repeated again in spring of next year when the bulk of buyers come out and inventory comes out to play as well. And then also Fortune Magazine did an analysis where they forecast what would be the effect of all these people who have taken the mortgage forbearance programs, offered to them through the federal programs, due to COVID shutdowns, and through the bank programs where they haven't been paying their mortgage. And, some people said, oh, this is going to cause the market to crash, or this is going to be the relief we finally seek, to get out of this, lack of inventory. And Fortune Magazine throws a little bit of cold water on that whole thing. And they're predicting that basically inventory levels nationwide are going to rise about 11%, but it's going to be a blip on the radar. They're going to be absorbed, and then it's going to kind of go back to that level it was. And I think the other thing that's important to know is that even though forbearance is ending, a lot of these bank programs don't just end right then and there. Their forbearance agreements they made with their clients sometimes stretch into next year. So we're going to see kind of an upswing, I think, in the fall of inventory. That's where the peak amount of forbearance is going to hit. Probably out of the 1.6 million or so forbearance loans, probably about 750,000 of them or so are going to probably get bled into the market over the next few months. And then next year is when the rest are going to kind of more slowly matriculate into the market. So it really is not going to be any wet blanket added to this on fire party at all. It's just going to be a little bit of a relief that's going to be absorbed quickly.
Perfect. So all of you builders out there, listen to Jim and I, because we obviously know the best. Build more houses, right?
Yes, yes. We'll get
Give us
into
some relief here.
yeah.
So Jim, what's going on nationally on all these big markets, right? We look at a lot of the major cities that kind of compare to Denver to give us a good comparison.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And for those folks listening at home rather than watching our fabulous YouTube channel and our beautiful faces, basically there's the top appreciated markets in the country on this little infographic we've got. And our little podunk town of Denver is on that list at 19.3% appreciation. Number one, though, is Phoenix at 29.7%. How do you feel about that, Anthony?
well, as I was telling you earlier, what comes up in Phoenix must come down because it makes zero sense to me that Phoenix is appreciating this fast. And
And
why? I mean, I was giving you my personal opinion, which is 100% my personal opinion, but in a place that has endless amounts of land and no water, I just totally don't get it. You can build forever out there. I mean, you literally that place, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful out there. It's a great place to snowbird from Denver because it's close, but 29%, come on.
So Anthony has just closed the door on any kind of job transfer to the Arizona area, everybody. But he does raise some good points about the fact that land is pretty unlimited over there, and sprawl is what Phoenix is defined as essentially. So
Absolutely. I mean, you'd think it would resemble a market more like the Houston market, which is on this graphic, because you can just keep building.
yeah,
Building costs rising across the entire country is pretty equal, right? It's not like it went up more in Denver than it did in Phoenix. So it's just bizarre to me that you see this. And you see it in Las Vegas too, which is one of the other markets that outperformed Denver. And we saw this in 2008 as well, where, back in those type of markets, they went up much faster than other markets around them. And, if a down market happens, some of those places experience that much more harshly than places like Denver.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So I mean, overall, the country as a whole has obviously risen 24%. With some of these markets like San Diego hitting about that number, and then just East Coast and Chicago having some pretty lively action on a smaller degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. We are super happy to be here today to bring you all the latest and greatest market information. I'm Anthony with Land Title, and you can always catch me on my cell phone at 303-968-9868 or A Meisner at ltgc.com.
And I'm Jim Marion, realtor here with Coldwell Banker. And my phone number is 303-548-0243. And you can always shoot me an email at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com. And we'll be walking through the national data like we just did. And now we're going to be moving over to the statewide data and then following that up with some of the local markets along the Front Range.
Don't forget, if you want to reach out to us at the podcast, frontrangefacts@gmail.com. We'll grab both Jim and I. If you want to just tell us how great the show is, or you just want to get a copy of the presentation or ask where we find some of our information, get a copy of the slide deck. The other thing that Jim and I do, don't forget our favorite hobby, the blockchain space and real estate. And you can always tune into that podcast, Get Real with Blockchain, anywhere you find your podcasts.
So let's look at a little bit of that national news. The statewide news now. So the Colorado Association of Home Builders did a study back in 2019 that I think is kind of interesting and relevant for today's discussion, and that is that back this is 2 years ago, they felt that there was about 135,500 homes short of demand, and so they underbuilt essentially by a six-figure amount in 2019. And that was kind of cumulative based upon other years of underbuilding. So did they learn their lesson after getting that study done in 2019, Anthony?
No, they didn't. And the big thing, we've been saying this since about 2010, is in 2010, they stopped building so many homes, and we have underbuilt by 10,000 homes per year, every year from then to now. And that statistic points out almost identically how short we are of building homes in Colorado.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I was reading about like Oakwood Homes, which is one of the builders here in Colorado, and they were only able to build 90% of the homes they had permitted this past year because of a couple key reasons. Rising material costs, all the supply chain issues related to composite boards and other types of building supplies, and then this labor shortage. That even though it's kind of the big conundrum right now in the whole unemployment space, right, Anthony? Like, where are all the workers that are out of work because everybody's short of labor? I mean, there was, what was it? One of the Dunkin' Donuts, I think, in the metro area, it normally has like 17 or 18 people employed, and they only have 3, so they shut down because they can't find enough people for it. And the service everywhere is pretty rough. So I think a lot of people have migrated out of service industry stuff and working elsewhere, but we're seeing still on the builder side, they're not able to find the laborers that they need to be able to build the housing.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate they didn't go out of the service market and into the construction industry where
Yes.
we need them, because basically I think we need to pretty much tell our children, like, hey, don't go get a college education, go get a blue collar job, because they're going to pay 3 times what white collar jobs pay by the time that they're that age. Because if this continues, there will be no labor left in the country. Like, it's just insane.
Yeah, no, for
I
sure.
mean, that's an extreme. Obviously, I'm joking, but we really do need to see a lot more people in those blue collar jobs. I mean, we're probably half of what we need at this point. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. And, just in general, just one other thing to point out is that in the greater Denver metro area, the median home price now for a detached home is $100,000 more than it was a year ago. So, we're at $600,000 for the median detached home price here in the metro area. A year ago, it was $500,000, which was already, one of the nation's, outside of the coast, was probably the highest place outside the coast. And so now we're 100K even higher than that, which is pretty nuts.
Which really tells you, if build costs are going up that quickly, something has to change, right? There definitely will be shifts in the marketplace, not based off of, lumber costs like we experienced in last year, or these labor shortages, but the cost of building homes, something has to change. And as you and I both know, in this market, water is becoming a concern and all these other things. I mean, I heard water taps out in Frederick are like $82,000 for a water tap right now. I mean, they're struggling to get the resources they need to build homes and put people on the Front Range.
Yeah, that's not too surprising. There was actually, I think in Lakewood, I was just talking to somebody on a commercial space, and they needed a 2-inch water tap, which is pretty darn big, and it was a $250,000 fee, $250,000 for a 2-inch water tap for a commercial building. So
wow,
that's significant, for
yeah.
sure. Well, there's always Mars. We can always go to Mars, Anthony.
Absolutely. You can sell your house on Earth, and for the same price as your home, you can get your ticket.
Hey, now you're thinking.
Right. Well, one of the big takeaways that Jim and I keep looking at, and we keep tabs on this pretty regularly, are just the showing traffic that takes place here in Colorado. And we look at this national level as well, but it's pretty well mirrored, except Colorado's more extreme, right? With the inventory shortage, more extreme in Colorado, and the showing traffic has decreased kind of on par, right? The showing traffic taking place is really, really significantly less than it has been in years past. But a lot of that is due to what are people going to go look at, right? Yeah. Jim, you had a really good example of this when you're out selling real estate. I mean, instead of showing 6 homes in a day to one client, what's happening?
Yeah, Anthony, as we were kind of talking before, this has been like a really just a weird year. I'm getting like clients where I'm showing, 2 or 3 homes to, and normally that person, in the typical sales cycle would be then out with me the following week, looking at maybe 1 to 6 homes, and the following week repeat till we figure it out. Whereas here I'm going, showing 1 or 2, 3 homes to somebody if I'm lucky. 3 seems to be kind of maxed out, and then 2 or 3 weeks later we meet up again and look at 1 home. There just is not the level of inventory, and that's where you look at the showing time data where it's just like a flat line basically. That 0%, I think it's important to point out, is for January, the beginning of January. That's what sets the 0%. So the idea that here we are in freaking August in this data, seeing a drop below the January 1st, activity levels is crazy. It's obviously not because people aren't buying, which we'll show in a minute how people are buying quite a bit. It's just that there is nothing to really look at, and so it greatly limits what you as a showing agent are going to be doing in the field.
Absolutely. I think this is one of those markets where this is a piece of the smaller pie, right? Like, this is just such a small indicator of what's happening, and it really goes to show that those buyers out there are very serious. So people looking at homes are continuing to shop and continuing to shop until they find something. This is like nothing we've ever seen before, really. I mean, this is kind of an unprecedented market, but it's why you're seeing these extreme swings in home sale prices, like $100,000 over Colorado for the median, right? That's a big change. We're going to get into the single family section here. So this is single family statewide in Colorado. You know, new listings coming on the market are almost in line exactly with where they were over the course of the last year. You know, we had this really weird 2020, and 2021 has been a very bullish year for real estate, but they're still listing homes. So when we see the shrinking amount of purchases and all the negotiations and these huge bidding wars that you can see here, I mean, you can see 3.5% more people are paying over asking price than they were a year ago. So we're at 103% year to date average, right? I mean, that's a big boost. We saw this year for the first time in 2021 where as a nation we saw over 100% list to sale price at times.
Yeah.
Never happened before. Like, this is a very unprecedented market. The biggest thing that I think people should pay attention to is just that shortage in inventory is causing this type of behavior, right? And it's not obviously because of the new listings coming on the market, because the new listings coming on the market are still coming on the market at their normal pace. Maybe at different times than usual. 2021 has been everything but normal, it seems like. But you know, people are buying faster, right? There's more under contracts. There's a lot more solds than ever before. So we're just eating away at that inventory level every single month. And that's driving these prices up. Look at
Well,
this.
and
Average sale
to
price,
see,
23%.
yeah, and to see the statewide median sale price break $500,000, that's serious stuff right there. That is remarkable to see, kind of just that level of growth statewide, because there's, you know, typically there was more variability in price points across, you know, different areas of the state, and everything is kind of rising up to more of that metro level of activity. I mean, we're within $95,000 basically now, the median sale price of the metro area when you look at statewide, and that includes places like Brush, Colorado, or Montrose, or wherever you want to be, it's out there.
Sure. I mean, everything from Grand Junction to Pueblo at this point to Fort Collins is all pretty closely in line, which has never really been the case before. I mean, we went down to Colorado Springs at one point, and Jim and I interviewed an economist down there to talk about that market. And that market was significantly cheaper at that time. And they're nearly about the price of everything else in the Front Range now. And, you know, their estimates are what, next year they should be the same size as Denver County?
Yeah. Denver County and El Paso County are going to be, population parity next year, apparently.
Pretty wild. And a lot of that, they can't build fast enough to keep up with pace. And it really hasn't changed much. We'll get over to them here in a second. So let's go over to the townhouse market. There's so much activity in the detached market that it's really flowing over to the attached market. So in 2020, we really talked about how people kind of shied away from the attached housing because of proximity and COVID and all this other stuff. And then you get into 21, and in 2021, even though we're still dealing with a lot of the COVID stuff, people are just needing a place to live. I mean, that's really what it's come down to, is with the aging millennial population and everything else happening. Look at this. Median sales price of attached units has gone up 16% in Colorado as a whole to 373, which is not really affordable for a first-time home buyer. Like, think of your 25, 30-year-old person, you know, shortly out of college, pretty new income. Like, this is a difficult price point for them to jump in on. And I think that's causing some of these problems and concerns that everyone's having in the Colorado market.
Yeah.
Especially where they want attached unit or detached units, right? They'd rather be at that $500,000 price point, and they're being pushed into these. So lots of bidding wars, same exact kind of concepts are taking place. Really low days.
It's actually, in my eyes, it's almost like the attached market, though, has gotten off easy with the price increases, because you think about the fact there's less listings, yet the sold activity is higher than the single family, more sold listings. So there's obviously less to choose from. And yet prices have only gone up 16%. I think they got off easy, kind of thing. And with that, it could have gone much higher.
I absolutely agree. And I think a lot of that is due to the people with a lot of cash in their pocket that were paying over asking price. We're trying to stay away from the attached market a little bit more than others. So your bidding wars weren't quite as extreme as they were in the detached market, right? We kind of have seen that over the course of last year.
Yeah.
I did put this one in here so we could take a look at it. The new listings. So this is listings coming on the market, and you really see this trend every year where in Colorado, obviously we have the most of the listings come on in the springtime and then through the summer, and they kind of trickle off in the winter, right? You can really see the shutdown last year on the market. So when you look at 2020, you had that dip where April and May were kind of this non-normal market where we just didn't have enough listings coming on. And then you had a lot of pent up demand that happened in the fall. Well, you can see that we're getting closer to a more normalized market. We've definitely experienced stuff like this in the past, but though it's not like we're real different in the new inventory coming on the market, right? A lot of what Jim and I are trying to reiterate was it's not sellers that are the issue here. It's that we have all this aging population, more houses required and not enough being built to keep up with them. And we're every single year kind of in the same spot, right? Nothing has really changed as far as new listings, as far as townhouses and condos, right? We're still bouncing around at the same levels we have since 2013. I mean, that's kind of incredible that that's how this is happening, right? That's just, it should not, we should be seeing these rise every year over and over and over again. It's just not happening because there's not enough homes being built. The big thing that I think you want to take away is that the extreme market we've seen in the spring and in the summer has not really ended, right? We talk about everyone had these huge bidding wars in the spring, right? I mean, tons of people are talking about 10%, 20% over asking price. Like there were some of the averages at like 500,000 in Colorado. We're going for like 108% of list to sale price, right? These huge numbers that nobody had ever seen. And you're really starting to see some of that dwindle off. But what people don't realize is this is August data here. We've never in the history of Colorado seen us still at 102%, right? We're way over there. This is still like a spring market. And here we are in September.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is bizarre behavior, but when you have no inventory and you have these record amount of buyers in the market still sets the precedent, right? You're still
It's a remarkable graph. It really is. I mean, just it's such a leaps and bounds above everything that preceded it. And, you know, it's even more dramatic from the fact that COVID kind of flattened the curve a bit on those things, you know, too. But no matter what, however you count it, you know, to be a good 3% above, you know, any other peak period is huge when you think about the dollar amount involved.
Yeah, at $500,000 median, right? Or 600,000 on average. Like,
yeah.
This is an incredible amount of money that people are spending because they just need a place to live.
Yeah.
I'm Anthony with Land Title. Thank you for joining us right now. We're going to get into local market next. You can always reach me if you have questions. My cell phone's 303-968-9868 or on my email at ameisner@ltgc.com.
And I'm Jim Marion, realtor here at Coldwell Banker. You can reach me at 3-548-0243 or jim@ourcoloradohomes.com. And thank you for all the text spams I've been getting lately, people. I think it's working.
Perfect. Jim, what's going on at Smedra?
The South Metro Denver Realtor Association, Anthony. You know, basically right here, we've got, you know, closed listings down a bit, 7.4% drop. And, you know, what I think is pretty grim in some ways is that new listings are down almost 11%. So, you know, here we have kind of the on-ramp for, you know, those deferred mortgage payments, the people in forbearance, but we're not seeing any reflection of that in our local market, nor do I really anticipate, just to kind of follow up on what we talked about previously with the national data, I don't really see Colorado as a whole, and specifically the Denver metro area, having much in the way of you know, distressed sales in any way, shape, or form, just because if nothing else, people are sitting on a mountain of equity that they were not entitled to prior to COVID hitting. So everybody is sitting pretty, I think, and so a lot of refinancing can occur, and just, you know, even a sale in a very orderly event. But, you know, not seeing new listings at all, and the pendings though are also down 7.2%, which I think is a lot of an effect of what, I call the COVID vacation, where everybody kind of took off, for good chunks of the summer to finally see family they hadn't seen in a couple of years. So it softened the second half of the summer quite a bit, which I don't think is going to continue. I think we're going to see fall roar the market back to place, but our median prices are still really solid at 16.5% increase. So we're still doing very well with home values, and I think the fall is going to bring good wind into the sales.
So I've got some really good news for you, Jim.
Oh, good.
The data says exactly that. Weird. It's
Whoa.
like that's what we're reading, right? I think one of the biggest pieces that if you look at Denver Metro as a whole is July, we really saw, rising inventory in June and July, and people were panicking a little bit. And there was no reason to panic because we had nothing to sell. And people literally, basically, like you were saying, about June 1st, the country started traveling again. People really took some time off and they spent some quality time with their families and on vacation and all this. And they just took this hiatus from buying, right? Mm-hmm. They knew, and because every month we've said the same thing, interest rates aren't going to rise. Interest rates aren't going to rise. The Fed keeps saying it. Everybody keeps saying, look, we're going to keep interest rates low, which means buyer demand should stay really high, right? Because if buyer demand stays high and there's nothing on the market to purchase, why not take a couple months off, right? Why not put your kids back in school first and then come back to a really interesting fall market where, you can take your time and buy what you want. Hopefully you're going to be dealing with the same kind of thing. So what we're really seeing, what we're going to probably experience all fall, the data is really representing well, is we hit our peak in inventory at basically less than a month worth of inventory in Denver Metro, 4,300 total listings, which is mind-blowing. That was the high point for the year. And we're now losing inventory again, right? And we really saw those last couple of weeks of August boost August numbers to where those pendings are through the roof again compared to what they were in July.
I really think it's important to draw people's attention to what happened in August of 2019. Looking at this data, you can see that, there's over 10,000 homes, for sale actively on the market in 2019, right? During that, summer timeframe, August, September. So we're basically, because we're at about 3,300 homes for sale now, and it was about 10,300 then, there were about 7,000 more homes on the market in the metro area 2 years ago today. 7,000 more homes.
A third of the inventory, right? I mean,
yeah, we have a third of what we had.
And look at this, so many more under contracts and solds than during that time period.
Yeah, higher level. It's a higher level,
right,
of just raw numbers. This isn't like a percentage of anything. It's just the raw numbers themselves. So the demand is crazy and the supply is awful. And anybody who thinks that fundamentally there's something that's going to magically change about this market truly does not understand or is paying attention to the data, because the data very clearly shows that the fall is going to be a really rough period for buyers. It's going to be really favorable for sellers, and there is no magic event that's going to pull us out of this in the short term.
Absolutely, and all of those things combined equal this price appreciation we've been talking about, right? Year over year, we're at 16% over in the metro area, which you guys saw the Denver numbers. They were estimated at almost 20%, 19%. So that's just wild to me. And this is not just Denver Metro, right? As we get into other markets, we'll talk about the same thing. It's like beating a dead horse in the Front Range. Colorado is desirable. Colorado hasn't built enough homes. We have lots and lots of millennial workers that need a place to live. Mm-hmm. All of these things are happening. They're all bringing Colorado kind of to the forefront in the real estate world across the United States. The other thing that I think is a big key and a big takeaway that we haven't touched on yet in our entire podcast is the luxury market is booming in Colorado. I mean, whoa, look at this. Yeah. 3+ million year over year. We're 133% up again. It seems like every month we talk about these double-digit appreciation or double-digit sales numbers, and everything over about 600,000 has had just tons and tons of sales, right? 44% more from 600,000 to 800,000. Then you get into 1 to 2 million, 43% more sales than we had a year ago, right? And it's every single month, right? This was not because COVID stopped the luxury market from operating. It did for
No.
a little bit of time, right? That we didn't see a lot. But when we were looking at the year to date numbers, they're way wildly above where they should be or where they have been in the past. Colorado is very desirable, and you have a lot of the country moving here for that high end real estate.
Well, and Anthony, I think, too, when you look at the chart here, and you can see that the under $500,000 price point has less active listings and less sold by price range. It isn't because of lack of demand. It's because there is no supply anymore in those price points. And that's why you're seeing, a 70% drop in available inventory for the $300,000 to $400,000 price point. It's because it has now been eliminated from the market to a large degree. And so everything in
Absolutely.
that price points have been shifted upwards. So all this growth that we're seeing in this higher end now is going to continue to be defined above $500,000 price point. And, the rear view mirror is the only place you're going to be able to see that under $500,000 price point by and large.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. People are getting priced out in the lower price ranges. They're appreciating fast enough that we're going to start combining some of these categories because there's just not a lot taking place there. But you can see, I mean, there's still a fair amount of inventory from 4 to 500,000. We had 1,200 sales last month in August, and 1,200 sales from 4 to 500,000 is still 21% down from where it was a year ago, right? Even with all that appreciating up, people just aren't listing those homes as much. If that's all they can afford, they're hanging on to them for dear life because they would get priced out of the market. We're not building that product, right? There's a million things that are causing the shortage. So luxury booms, the median price ranges are suffering because there just isn't enough inventory. And that's the new norm for the last year, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the big part of this that is the other side of the takeaway is that we talk about how hot these markets are across the country and how Denver really compares to that. And the Denver market in comparison is just moving at lightning speed, right? Single digit numbers in those median price ranges. That's why you're seeing so much appreciation in the marketplace, because when something goes on the market, it's selling within 9 days. It's going under contract in Denver Metro, right? You see some of the luxury price ranges. You see 82 days on market for 3+ million. Well, 3+ million in 82 days on market, that's not very much, right? I mean, we used to talk to people about, all right, well, it could take up to a year for your house to sell. It could take 6 months for your house to sell, right? Like, we got to do all these things to try to attract buyers because there's just not very many people that can afford a $3 million house. Well, now we're at not even 7 months of inventory on the marketplace as fast as they're turning over in Denver. And this isn't even the most active luxury market, right? So,
And I bring it up every month, but it wasn't, it was 2 years ago or less when we were doing this podcast where we had 18 months supply of inventory for that 3 million plus. I mean, how times have changed so quickly.
absolutely. The other big problem, like Jim said, is just with the price appreciation taking place in the market, it's forcing everyone to buy more and more and more, higher prices, right? So even up to 2 million now, you basically have 1.3 months of inventory. So lots is moving quick. There's not enough inventory in the market. That's why there's no bubble. Plain and simple, right? If we had inventory and we had stuff moving fast, that'd be one thing, but we don't. We have high buyer demand with low supply, causes all this price appreciation and causes these frenzies. And so that's the market we're dealing with. And it's no different than anywhere else. So let's get into the local markets across the Front Range, Jim. I'm Anthony with Land Title. You can always reach me at 303-968-9868.
And I'm Jim Marion, realtor with Coldwell Banker. Feel free to give me a call, 303-548-0243.
All right, so Larimer County, let's start at the top. What's going on in Larimer County, Jim?
Well, basically, we're kind of seeing the same pattern we have everywhere else. Inventory is starting to kind of pull up a little bit there. But from its July peak, it's dropping back down a little bit now. And the amount that's been sold year over year has actually dropped down 12% in Larimer. And a lot of that's due to the fact that they really hit a very low point with inventory this year and just had not very much for sale at all. But you're reflected, of course, on that sale price going up almost 17% year over year variance. So it's a pretty challenging market to be a buyer and very rewarding still to be a seller.
If you go over to Weld County, it is very, very similar. You're still seeing those incredibly low inventory levels, 50% less than we've seen in years past. Very similar stuff happening there. Low solds because they're being restricted, right? Just like Larimer County is. There's just not enough on the market for all that buyer demand out there. You're seeing drops in inventory again. The fall market is going to be booming across the Front Range, right? That's the takeaway here. Weld County is no different. And you're seeing those huge price appreciations, 13%, right, year over year. And those are probably higher if you were looking at them year to date than just year over year. So
Yeah.
Yet again, just like their neighbors. If you go into Boulder County is a little different than Larimer and Weld. A lot of that due to just the high price of entry into Boulder County. So when you look at the Boulder County market, the average price in Boulder County is $735. $735 is actually kind of small compared to some of the cities in the area, right? We see stuff over $1 million pretty regularly in a lot of the markets in Boulder County, and they're still getting 12% appreciation, right? And a lot of that is due to not enough supply, right? Our sales in Boulder County right now are down 20% from this time last year, right? Huge number of drop because there's no inventory in the market. And what this slide doesn't show you is that over half of the active inventory on the market right now is in the city of Boulder, not the county. So with that happening, we have this really, really low level of inventory at all the outerlying cities from Longmont, Erie.
Well, and just look at where 2019 was in Q3, right? I mean, we had 2/3 more inventory than we do now, and so
Right.
the demand is higher, the sales numbers are higher, yet we're 2/3 less inventory. So that's exactly why I'm showing people one home during the week rather than the 4 to 6, you went before. It's just the natural result of it.
Absolutely. So let's go over to El Paso. Down in the Colorado Springs area, it is really similar and in line with what we're seeing in the northern Colorado area, right?
Mhm.
Larimer, Weld, El Paso, Boulder, like as ridiculous as it seems that we can compare Metro and everything else all together, we really are seeing these huge over asking price offers, lots of bidding wars. Days in the MLS are really, really low. And when you don't have enough days in the MLS and you don't have enough inventory in the marketplace, it drives all those prices way up. So yet again, you're seeing those average sales price increase. Look at this detached single family average sales price is up 19%.
It's places like this that are not going to get under 103% for the year. Once they look at the whole 12-month average, we're still going to be above 103% list price to sale price for places like this. And it will not surprise me in the least if our median sale price for El Paso County a year from now is pushing $500,000. That's about
Absolutely.
about 70%, $70,000 price increase. I can totally see it happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been kind of cautiously optimistic about the El Paso market for a long time, but at the rate that they're growing, this has just been the story every single year for the last 5 years. I mean, one of the other things to look at is this month supply of inventory number right here. When it's under a month, right, we see massive appreciation in the market. You same thing with townhouses, right? Half a month of inventory, massive appreciation, 20+% appreciation in these markets. And every time you start to see that kind of behavior, that's just what's going to happen until the inventory levels change, right? Either buyer demand has to completely drop off or we have to build more units.
Yeah, I think if you look at the past 5 years in El Paso, you're probably seeing 100% appreciation compared to about 70% or so, in the rest of the metro areas. It's been a remarkable ride. And I do wonder, whether that could be sustained given the socioeconomic factors of El Paso County as a whole. And, the fact that they have a lot of military members down there and, others that support those that maybe not have the same level of income as they do in places like Boulder County. But, it's on fire this year for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today. Here we are, August. We're basically close to 2/3 of the way through the year. And we just want to say thank you for joining us. Don't forget, you can always check out our other podcast. If you haven't gotten enough of us yet, Get Real with Blockchain, getrealwithblockchain.com, or anywhere you get your podcast there. I'm Anthony Meisner with Land Title. You can always reach out to me at 303-968-9868 or ameisner@ltgc.com.
And I'm Jim Marion, realtor here with Coldwell Banker. Phone number is 303-548-0243, or shoot me an email to jim@ourcoloradohomes.com. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.